growing up, there was a song, I left my heart in San Francisco. Well, my song, I left mine in Africa, in Zambia particularly. So I have here a map of Africa for people who may not be so familiar with. This is Zambia, the green. This is Zimbabwe and Mozambique. That little purple bit in there is part of Malawi. And as you all know, we were in Mali up on the west coast, but we're not any longer there. In Zambia, we have six communities in Mozambique. 3 in Zambia, 3 in Zimbabwe, and 6 in Mozambique. But now, of course, Zambia and Zimbabwe are one region, the Zambezi region. They have very few sisters. In the Zambezi region, they have only 4 African finally professed sisters. Sorry, they have 5. Rosemary is in the Nabisi. They had 6, but Christine has decided to take a year out, and I would ask you please to pray for her. She's been through a very difficult year with people. One of our young sisters died, and others got sick, and Christine was kind of holding the community together. And I think it got a bit too much for her, so she's taken time out, and hopefully, with a lot of prayer, she will return. They have 7 temporary professed, including one of the newly professed sisters who is Brazilian, Aelita. And they have then 8 expatriate sisters, the oldies. 4 from the EAP and 4 from the NEP. I thought since we are celebrating Foundation Day, we would just remind ourselves again of what we're about as Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Mary. A little bit of our vision statement from the General Chapter, and Father Gaia telling us what our vocation is. I liked what Father said this morning at Mass, that to be a missionary is everywhere. It's not just people who go to Africa, people who go to other countries. We are all missionary. And I loved this little thing that Pope Francis wrote. And of course, his picture is always welcome. At the time, they were the English-Irish province. Now we're the NEP. The 2 sisters went to Zambia in 1966. So in May last year, they celebrated 50 years. And as Joan said, I like to travel. I was lucky to be present for the celebration, which was a wonderful, wonderful day, and a great expression of what it meant to be an RSHM in Zambia. Many past pupils, past priests that had been there, one of the Holy Spirit sisters, they all spoke so beautifully about our relationship with them. It was very special. This is Jane, Planet, and Perpetua. They are the 3 novices who were received on Friday in Brazil. This is Margaret, who is 2 years professed now. And if you remember, I don't know if the whole province knew, we made an appeal for chairs for a new hall that the parents had built. And here they are bringing the chairs in for the celebration. You did? Yeah. You did indeed. Every province came up trumps and contributed, and between everything, we got 1,000 chairs. So we filled the hall, which was wonderful. This is the hall, designed and built by the parents, which was, and as you can see, it's not easy to build on this rocky ground. Chivuna is a very rural mission, 50 miles from the nearest tarred road. And the road to Chivuna, you would be shaken to death. But it's a mission with a terrific spirit. There's the school, there's a clinic, and there's a primary school. And it's surrounded by all the local people. And of course the local people kept us supplied with vegetables, tomatoes. When they had enough water, they could grow. And we always had a very good relationship with them. But I think God made me with a very big mouth. And while we taught through English, everything in education was English, I always felt I can't talk to the local people. Their language was Tonga. So I talked long and loud about this. We should learn Tonga. We should learn Tonga. And of course it came back to bite me. And in 1980, happy as a lark in my classroom, I'm asked, would you like to go and learn Tonga? And thinking, oh yes, that'd be great. And I'll come back and I'll be able to talk to all the local people. That didn't happen. I tried to learn the Tonga, I got enough to get by, and then I was asked to go as a pastoral sister to Choma, and that was something else. I arrived in Choma and presented myself to an elderly Jesuit, Irish Jesuit, and I said, Father, I'm here and I'm to be the parish sister. Oh yes, sister, the linen needs to be washed. I said, can't anybody else do that? He said, tell you what now, he said, you go out the gate, you turn left and you'll find the people. I went out the gate, I turned right and I went home. I had a good cry. But at the time we had a young Zambian priest in the parish. And somebody advised me, you attach yourself to him and go with him wherever he goes. And he was very generous with me, he took me wherever. And when the people got to know me then, it was fine. I mean, what is it about the African people? They are the poorest of the poor, but they are happy, they're resilient, and once they know you, their trust is humbling. It really is. We always had great relationships with them. So here we are. When I showed this picture at the school the other day, I asked the students if they were going to the Oscars tonight, would they like to be dressed like anybody else? Oh no. But in Africa, it's the thing to have a uniform. So this was our uniform for the celebration. We were all presented with it when we arrived. This, I'm sure some of you recognize. This is Florence, first African regional of the Zambezi region. Florence is dynamic. She is proving to be a good leader. And she's very open to learning. And that's so important as leaders, that we learn. And these are some of our sisters that were at the celebration with the bishop. You have here Kathleen Murphy, who is now in the novitiate, Florence Riley, that's Virginia, is it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But you'll be interested to know that the bishop fine portly bishop, was a student of Sister Judith's. So the Mexican sisters, you can tell her you have seen her bishop. She taught him when he was a little boy. I'm sure you're familiar with the Holy Spirit sisters. Yeah. When we first went to Zambia, the local bishop of Monzi decided he wanted a diocesan congregation. And he founded the congregation, but he asked the Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Mary to train them. So they really are, they're our sisters more than our cousins. We're very close with them. They now have, then he asked that we wouldn't take any girls into our congregation or any other congregation there until these sisters were well established. Now they have about 35 sisters, so they're pretty well established. They, unlike our sisters who are supported by us, they have to find their own supports, and it's difficult. Salaries, many of them are teachers or nurses, salaries are not good. So recently they have bought a farm to grow vegetables, to grow maize, as an income for their congregation. When I first went to Zambia in 1973, we had one African priest in the diocese. Now, isn't that fantastic? It's really great, yeah. Virginia Milan and the pre-novices, they dressed the altar for the day for the celebration. Now, when we had a novitiate, we built a novitiate in Chinoy, in Zimbabwe. And the first two novices came from Zimbabwe, but they didn't stay. And then the rest, as time went on, began coming from Zambia. And we were getting very uneasy in Zambia because if they stayed in Zimbabwe and they made profession, they were making profession to the Eastern American province. And we weren't very happy with that. So after a lot of soul searching, research and talking, we decided we'd become a region. The sisters in Zimbabwe, the sisters in Zambia, and any young women that joined us. And Pat has it done beautifully in her book, if you'd like to get the whole history of it. She has done it very well. Then, of course, what do we call the region? Well, we had great fun. Do we call it Zim Zam? Zam Zim? And there were a host of other names. We eventually fixed on Zambezi because the Zambezi River flows between the two countries, and it seemed the obvious one. And when we became a region on the 6th of January 1996, we had a beautiful ritual just before Mass of pouring the water from both sides of the river into a pot. I have reason to remember that, and I'll never forget it. During the offertory, it was my job to carry the pot on my head to the altar. But none of us realized that the clay pot had not been fired. So you can imagine. So there was drip, drip, drip as I went to the altar. So much for my hairdo that morning. There's, if you can Here, this is spray from the Victoria Falls. They're not all clouds, it's spray. You can see the spray here, rising up. I mean, if there's a bridge there that you can walk across and get soaked. Victoria Falls. Again, there's 1.5 kilometers in Zambia, 1.5 kilometers in Zimbabwe. And the Zambezi River flows over that. Beautiful sight. So when we became a region, Virginia Milan was the first regional superior. Carol Schomer and myself were her council. And Carol doubled as the regional treasurer, and I was the secretary. In 2014, this was the Chavula community, but by 2017, it was greatly reduced. But now Speedway is going back in May. She'll have finished her studies in May. Myra has already gone back. Lilia and the pre-novices have gone there just to keep people there, keep it open. And if you go on to the next one, I think, Joe. Oh no, I'll show you Mavis later. She's also going to be there. This sister here, Rosalia. She is now the headmistress of St. Joseph's School in Chibun. She's very highly qualified. And I think there are 1 or 2 of her sisters working in the school. Speedway will be working in the school, and Christine was. And hopefully if Christine comes back to us, she'll go back there. Moira, that you saw on the previous slide, she works in the library there. This is Mavis. Mavis has been teaching in Lusaka for some years, and now she has moved to Chavula, to a primary school. This is Flo. Many of you will know her. That's Cortrida at the back there. And Catherine Dunn, who was the first novice mistress of the Holy Spirit sisters. And then two of the pre-novices. It's just to give you an idea of who's there. And that's Margaret, 2 years professed. She was the youngest sister at the time. And Florence. There's Moira again, and Margaret in the library. Troy community. This was when Roz and I visited in 2014. Leila O'Shea, Coltreda, and Virginia. And now they have Margaret, that you've already seen, and they have Mercy, who has just finished special education, and she's teaching in the school as well. And here we are. These are the newly professed. This is Precious, Mary, and Selena. And poor old Selena is still stuck in Brazil. Yeah. Selena is a refugee to Zambia, so she's on refugee papers. And whatever went wrong when she was to leave Brazil and go back, they wouldn't accept her papers, so they're still working on it. Precious is going back to Brazil, to community in Brazil. And Climate and Perpetual are two of the three novices received on Friday. In Choma, the house itself has 5 or 6 5-bedrooms, but from the Hilton Foundation, when I was there, we got money to build a little cottage on the grounds, and with that cottage, the pre-novices have a place to stay, which is very good. And for them, lots of ministries in Choma. Now we come to my baby. This was my baby. St. Philippa School. As Joan said earlier, when I was in the parish, I came across a lot of children particularly with intellectual disabilities. And people were frightened of them. There was a stigma attached. I think those of us from Ireland can identify with that. It would have been very much like that many years back. And as the people got to know me and got to trust me a little bit, they let me meet the children, locked up and tied up. And it was heartbreaking. And of course, the big mouth started again. And I talked long and loud. Something has to be done. Something has to be done. Only the church can do this. Looks like the government is not interested. So one Jesuit priest said to me, I am tired listening to you. Go and talk to the bishop. He's the only one that can do anything. So on I went to the bishop, and I told him my story. And I said, you know, maybe you could look for a congregation that would come and do this work. He looked at me and he said, Sister, it's your problem. You do something. I said, but I couldn't. I don't have any money. I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm not trained for this work. Well, he said, there's nothing I can do. I was very cross. I left, and it just stayed with me, and the anger wouldn't leave me, and that was bothering me. And then I met, he was, as Zambian priest, he was the secretary to the bishop's conference. And I said, you won't believe what my bishop said to me. And his response was, Philippa, if you don't do it, it will never be done. So I think God gives the grace, and he gives the kick where it's needed. So I went to the Irish embassy. I didn't know if they gave money for things. I had never done anything like this. So I walk in and I said, do you give money for projects? And he says to me, where did you hear that? Typical Irish answer. They'll answer your question by asking another one. And I said, well, don't you? Well, we do, he said, but it would need to be a very good project. Well, I said, I think mine is. Where are your plans? I had nothing. It was all up here. Anyway, I did. I got the money from them, and we started. And these are some of our beautiful children. This is a Japanese volunteer. We've had various volunteers over the years coming. So we began with the intellectually challenged children, because they were the ones that really needed. And then later on, we had one young boy in the town called Samuel. And Samuel was deaf and he didn't speak. And he really lived a wild life. He lived out of the bins, and he ran away if anybody went near him. But he suddenly discovered that we were there, and he kept coming. And he'd come as far as the gate one day, and then maybe the next day he'd come inside the gate. But if you went to give him anything, he was gone. Bit by bit, he came, and I looked for a place in school for him. Nothing. Nothing in the whole of Zambia. So I went back to the bishop. Can I please add a unit to the school? You can do whatever you like, sister, because you're doing it anyway. So, Grant's Whiskey gave me money to build a classroom for the deaf.
Could you repeat the name? Who gave you the money?
I don't drink any whiskey other than Grant's.
Whiskey.
Grant's Whiskey.
Oh, Grant. Oh.
Grant's Whiskey. Then, at a later stage again, a mother came with two little boys, both blind. Derek and Davis, brothers. There's nothing for them. What do? You make elastic walls and you bring them in. I had a beautiful story which I shared with the students at Marymount. The day Derek and Davis came, they were in the office with me with their mother, and one of the intellectually challenged young lads came to the door. His name was Annabelle, and Annabelle surveyed the scene and decided that they were worse off than he was. So he came in and he said, "Come with me." He showed them all around. He showed them the dining room, and we hadn't yet said we'd take them. The dining room, the dormitories. He took them everywhere. I have never seen two children, it was Derek mostly, become such good friends. And very often, if we had sweets to give out, you line them up and you give them so many sweets. So the first time I had sweets, Annabelle came along with Derek. I said, this will be interesting now. Will he put his own sweets in his pocket before he asks for Derek, or what? No. He took his two sweets, gave them to Derek, and then put his hand for his own two. Because he truly believed he was better off because he could see where he was going. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience. These are some of the deaf children. It took a long time for us to be accepted in Choma. There are several days during the year where primary schools are expected to entertain, like World Health Day, Farmers Day, any other kind of a day. The young children are expected to go and dance and sing and entertain everybody. And we were never invited. Every school was invited except us. So I wrote to the mayor one day and I said, look, you seem to be happy to come to the school to hand out stuff, but you never invite us to anything. Why? I didn't hear back, but the next day was World Health Day, then a couple of months later, and we got our invitation. So, we were up at 4 o'clock that morning getting them ready and dressed and fed so they wouldn't be crying with hunger and what have you. And we arrived. A teacher from one of the other schools was the MC for the day. He got the crowd going, cheering at us, laughing at us. Here they come. They think they can do something. We know they can't do anything. Let's offer them the best seats here. We were shown the ground. And the teachers were, I said, these are our children. Let's sit. It's fine. They will learn, don't worry. Let's sit, let's sit. So we sat down. And then when it came time for the entertainment, Same teacher. Now, these ones can show us what they can do. We know there's nothing they can do. Let them get up, and everybody's laughing, everybody's cheering. Children got up. I didn't dare because they'd laugh more at my dancing than they would at the children's. And bit by bit, silence. They were children. They were enjoying themselves. Everybody was crying. Everybody cried. That was the day we were accepted. And that was 2 years after we started. It took a long, long time. The other time was with our cultural singers and dancers. Every year there's a cultural competition for primary schools. And we never considered ourselves a special school. We're a primary school. It was special for the intellectually challenged because they had a different program. But for the deaf children and the blind children, they followed the same program as every other primary school. They did it in sign language or they did it in Braille, but it was exactly the same. So, the teacher in charge of the cultural activities went off to sign us in. And he came back, no, not allowed. I said, why not? Well, he said that we'll expect marks for nothing. I said, go back and tell him, if we deserve 0, we'll accept 0. That's what we deserve. Goes back. No, we can't let you do it because you're not normal. I got a huge sheet of paper and I wrote normal equals. I said, now please take that back and ask him to define normal. And if he can define normal for me, then right, we won't go. But if he fails to define normal, we're going. Of course he couldn't. So we went, and we made sure that the judges for the day did not know that the children were in any way disabled. The blind children did the singing and the drumming. The deaf children did the dancing, and the mentally challenged fitted in wherever. Guess what? We won. And they have won so many competitions since then. I mean, I was blessed with the teachers I had. They were so dedicated, all Zambian. They were wonderful, wonderful people. And of course, my dream from day one was that one day a Zambian RSHM would be there. And she is Cortrida. She's the vice principal of the school now. And she's doing a wonderful job. Now we have Marymount. Marymount Joe, not Marymount LA. Joe mentioned that I worked for Cara Counselling. And in that situation, you came across not only the people themselves with HIV, but all their extended family. And a lot of children whose parents had died, they were sent to relatives who really couldn't care for them. So they spent a lot of their lives on the streets, selling apples and oranges and whatever they could get. And when we had extra money, we used to bring them around to Cara Counselling and feed them because they were hungry. And I had it in my head that a shelter for them where they could go and have a bath, go and maybe cook something, maybe have a little sleep, would keep them safe and get them off the streets for at least a few hours. And again, my big mouth, I talked about it. And when I came to Rome for the 2001 chapter, Marymount Rome gave me €6,000 to fulfill this dream that I had. I went back and we called the children together and we said, this is what we're planning to do. Oh no, we don't want that. A real lesson in you don't tell people what they need, you wait and let them tell you what they need. What they wanted was school. Because many of them had been in school, and when the parents died, they could no longer go to school, and they were missing it. So, with the 6,000, we bought this pub, bar, beer hall. They're called beer halls in Zambia. And we turned it into a school, and we called it Galindo Gamaria, which means Marymount. It's known as a community school. The local community is responsible for it. And we don't have, apart from supporting it, we don't have any other contact with it. But it's a wonderful place to go. The lady in the black and white over there, this lady, she comes from that area herself. She was an orphan herself. And she's a past pupil of Chibuna. And she's the headmistress. Yeah. Handpicked by Sister Edna O'Connor. Yeah. And she's doing a wonderful job. As you can see, I think they have about 400 pupils there now. Virginia. That's one classroom. Now, the Lusaka community. This is Dominique, Joe's sister. I'm sure some of you know her. Yeah. And this is Pam Pinkert. Judith's sister, that's right, Judith's sister. And this is Jane and Plinet. These are two now in the novitiate. Dominique is the regional treasurer, so she looks after the money. And it sounds easy, but it isn't, because we have many currencies. We have Zambian kwacha, British pounds, euro, American dollars, and I don't know really what goes in Zimbabwe these days. So it's quite difficult to balance everything. And Dominique also, last year, she oversaw a big renovation of the regional house in Lusaka, which took several months. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I believe it's beautiful. Pam does counseling in a local hospice, and she also has private clients for counseling. And at the moment, she's looking after a little school that Edna O'Connor was in, and Edna went back east this year, so Pam is taking care of the school. This is Florence in her nurse's outfit. She's an excellent nurse. She spent a number of years in intensive care, doing intensive care nursing. This is the little school that it's under the auspices of a local parish. But Edna O'Connor was the one that kind of got it up and going and running. Umoyo means health or vitality. And they have a lot of children. They're like kindergarten children. There they are. And it's a start for them. It gets them out of the compounds, off the streets during the day. And they get food, which is a big help to the families. And then, of course, because they're in this school, they have better chances of getting into the ordinary primary schools. Now we're in Zimbabwe, in Chinoy. This is Joyce, who has recently qualified as a teacher. And if you notice the little hats, when Zimbabwe was predominantly white, the white children always wore a hat going to school. I presume to protect the skin from the sun. But the Africans have kept the tradition. No? Guess who? This is Joan's sister Margaret. For those of you who don't know, we have many Tracys. And Margaret is in Harare. She's on her own at the moment. And here she is with two of her students. The sisters do great work helping students with grinds and with homework. And this is a Bible study in one of the churches. And in Margaret's house, they gave a room to some women who had knitting machines for the women to make a bit of money. And as you can see, they're producing beautiful stuff. Yeah, it's really good. Kathleen was with Margaret, Kathleen Murphy, until we unfortunately had to ask her to go to the novitiate. The Zambezi sisters were not very happy with us. This is one of the, it's a bit dark, but there she is with her machine. This is Tendai's 90th birthday. She's now 92. She still drives a truck. She still takes people to the hospital. When Roz and I were there, she drove us all over the place. Full of life, absolutely full of life. This is Beatrice. Beatrice is a nurse. Beatrice is in Chennai, Florence and Joyce.
Who is the man?
He's a priest, I don't know his name. And this is Margaret and Carol with the two Zimbabwe pre-novices, Jane and Stella, but Stella hasn't stayed. This is the Vincent de Paul, which is very strong. Margaret, they have food, clothes, and they gather up and take out to the people in the rural areas where they're most needed. Here we have Tendai, Kathleen, Evelyn, Margaret, I don't remember this girl's name. She was a Malawian, but she didn't stay. She was a pre-novice, she didn't stay. And this one I'm not very sure about. I think she's still there. There's Tendai taking communion. Isn't it beautiful? 92 years of age. Evelyn has changed the face of Mutare. She works for the diocese. She has fundraised so much money for clinics, schools, HIV and AIDS, and she has trained people in project writing, project reporting. She's been phenomenal while she was there. And this is a huge garden that they have for people with HIV, so they can at least have good vegetables. And there's Evelyn herself. And as I said, schools, this is a school, a new school, they're cutting the ribbon for early childhood learning. And that's the end of the Zambezi region.